All right, it is October 2nd, 2024. We just got update 37, new Warframe, some new updates to existing Warframe, some fun new things to play with, and the one thing that nobody was looking forward to, the nerf to the funny monkey build, which just kind of affects a lot of heavy slam builds as well. They really finally made it hard to actually get out of the heavy attack recoveries, which was the big thing that was making it possible to just go absolutely bananas with the slam build utilizing Cloudwalker. So now that you can't still do this, it still allows you to use a heavy slam to exit Cloudwalker. That's kind of an intended feature, it seems like. But previously, you were able to just activate Cloudwalker again during the recovery of the slam to go right back up into it, meaning most of the time you were flying around in Cloudwalker and being invincible, just dropping down once in a while to slam into your enemies for huge amounts of damage with a dedicated heavy slam build on a hammer. So that doesn't really work anymore because the recoveries are hard to get out of. So why not just go with somebody who doesn't have to worry as much about recoveries because he's fast? So Gauss, on his redline ability, has an attack speed buff which is applied to melee attacks. And attack speed affects everything in order to make attacks faster with melee weapons, which includes recoveries. So on this particular build, if you get up to max redline, you get 128% attack speed, which also applies to the recoveries. So you recover from your heavy attacks 128% faster. The heavy slams specifically, since that's what we're focusing on. So I have an entire build that is dedicated to just doing heavy slams with Gauss. So we've got Ready Steel up on the aura for more initial combo because heavy attacks are massively affected by your combo counter. The number on there literally acts as a multiplier for the damage. So whatever your combo multiplier is going to multiply all of your heavy attack damage by that number. So as much combo as you can get is going to make your damage just go crazy, and you don't have to worry about using a super optimized build like a Magistar and Karnan build. You don't have to do that. We're using the two Naira's mods for Warframes because these give you additional heavy attack slam damage, and this is added on after the fact as well. I don't know if it's after the multiplier or not, but it is after other damage modifiers. It doesn't act like adding on an additional pressure point mod. It is its own damage increase. So this is huge. We don't use the third one because it's whips only. There's not really a reason to do that. Everything else is just kind of general Gauss stuff. Since we're using super high duration, I have adaptation on here as well because we're really leaning into utilizing his shields and his passive to stay alive because it takes a good probably 40 to 45 seconds to fully charge up Redline in order to get that 100% damage resistance from kinetic plating. That's a decent amount of time where you're still vulnerable to things. So utilizing his extremely fast shield regeneration with his passive, adaptation for more damage reduction, and I also like to use Arcane Aegis just for further shield tanking on Gauss. This is fun because it feels similar, not exactly, but pretty close to what Wukong can do, simply because you spend a lot of time being extremely hard to kill. You're also very fast, and you can spam heavy slams like nobody's business. So it's not exactly Cloudwalker, you can't fly around, but you can still be really fast and really hard to kill. Arcane Fury is not necessary, but if you want to go crazy on the damage, why not? You can really slot in whatever you want here. Same thing with using Wrathful Advance. This is not necessary at all. If you have a dedicated heavy slam build on a hammer, it's going to do a lot of damage, and this is not necessary. I decided to just do this because it's funny. It's just funny to go around doing millions of damage to Steel Path Grenier with no armor stripping because Monkey. This is the hammer build that I'm using the brand new galvanized reflex mod that came with this update. This is absolutely amazing for any heavy attack build. The efficiency isn't really a big deal. The initial combo is a huge deal. This is getting up to, I believe, a 7x multiplier when this is active, along with Corrupt Charge and Ready Steel on the Warframe. So a 7x multiplier to your heavy slam damage with this. The rest of this build is just kind of doing typical heavy slam things. I'm doing it with the Titron specifically because of the guaranteed electric status that you get on heavy slams, which pairs perfectly with melee influence, boosting it up with Shocking Touch and Melee Elementalist for even more damage, Sack Steel for the crit chance. I'm not going to bother using the Galvanized Steel mod just because it's only 10% more critical chance in the end, and you have to build it up. If you want to go for that, by all means, go right ahead. You can actually polarize for it much more easily if you want to have an easier time fitting all of your mods into your build, but otherwise it's really not necessary. Just the usual heavy slam stuff. Seismic Wave, Dispatch Overdrive is not necessary, but it's fun, especially with Gauss, since we're already going really fast anyways. So why not just have even more movement speed? The stance mod does not matter at all. It's just giving extra capacity. Heavy slams are the same on every single stance mod. So we're just going to be going super fast, not really having to worry about recovery since we recover so quickly from the attacks, and just slam the hell out of absolutely everything as if nothing ever changed. The only difference now is you can't fly, but it's a small price to pay for being able to run around fast and be hard to kill and hit enemies for millions of damage consistently.
Scans show Grenier are harvesting Kuva nearby. Set off the alarms to draw them out, then steal their Kuva catalysts.
Everything you're doing with Gauss with this build is exactly what you think it would be.
Grenier have shut down the environmental systems, sending modified life.
Activate your 4, activate your 2. If you're using Wrathful Advance, get that to get your damage boost, and just start slamming. And you can see, get right out of that recovery in no time at all. This only goes up the more you build up your battery, because the percentage buff that you get from Redline increases as you increase your battery. So just keep running, keep slamming, keep charging up your battery. It's going to keep shortening those recoveries all the way up to that 128% mark. And you're going to be able to just slam everything while being extremely hard to kill. Obviously, this isn't complete invulnerability because we are depending on shields. We're depending on a damage reduction ability with kinetic plating. Adaptation is only 90%. If you get your kinetic plating all the way up to 100%, for most damage types, you don't have to worry about damage anymore. It's the intermediate time between when Redline deactivates and you have to recharge it. That's the point where you can be vulnerable to enemies. So that's why I like to use the additional mods for survivability. Of course, this does require a bit more button inputs on your part. It's not just activating Cloudwalker and then hitting slam and just alternating those two buttons. You need to run around, you need to jump. You gotta do the movement yourself. I would argue this is actually a lot more fun than doing it with Wukong, because you're just more involved. I've always really enjoyed Gauss just being able to move super fast. Usually just use Gauss for weapons with energized munitions, but this is extremely fun as well. You can still use guns on it, of course. I just really like using energized munitions on the Gauss build. I'm just doing this now so you can see the huge difference it makes utilizing Redline to shorten those recoveries. Charge this back up again, and those recoveries are going to go down super fast. And you're able to just slam away like crazy. If you're using a Titron build with melee influence, you don't have to worry about range as much. The whole reason I do this instead of using like a Magistar and Karnan is because with the Slam mods, with the Naira's mods, and with utilizing Wrathful Advance for even more crit chance, the damage is just absolutely goofy. You don't need more damage than this for the vast majority of things you're doing, unless you want to try to push towards, like, into the thousands of levels on enemies. You really don't need more damage than this, and at that point you're probably not going to be using slam builds anyways. It's not exactly the best way to deal damage. It's the best way to deal millions of damage, but you can go even higher than that with a different Warframe, different weapon setups. This is more just for doing the vast majority of Warframe content quickly and easily. Not really getting shot a whole lot, partly because we're moving fast and killing things quickly, but even the times where I am getting shot, the damage is barely even registering. And that's, of course, when the battery is not completely charged to provide the 100% kinetic plating resistance. Yep, not quite the same as the ridiculous Wukong cloud walking, but considering that's not something they're really going to be able to do anymore. You want a good alternative, well, you're going to have to probably compromise a little bit. It's really not that much of a compromise to have to run around the way you would normally play Warframe and just jump and spam heavy attacks. Especially not when you can do this with it so easily. I mean, Steel Path, Kuva Grenier, almost all of them getting one shot. The ones that aren't getting one shot are dying from the electric status afterwards, because again, the hammer has guaranteed electric status on heavy attacks. So even if the Eximus doesn't die immediately, like I was hoping he wouldn't, the electric damage over time afterwards will kill him. Guaranteed, because it's going to be hitting for hundreds of thousands of damage per tick. I'll wait for the Acolyte to spawn because it's going to do the exact same thing to the Acolyte. They have a lot of health and shields, and of course they're armored, but it really doesn't matter. When you're able to do this kind of damage on a single hit, you just line that heavy up nice and easy with when the Acolyte shows up. And he's gone. Yeah, I'm quite happy with this. Just something I thought was going to be a good idea. Pieced it together really quickly. Trying to utilize Redline to get that recovery down, and I think it works like a charm. The nice thing is that Gauss is pretty flexible. You don't have to build exactly the way that I did. The most important thing is certainly using the Naira's mods and getting as much duration as possible, because more duration actually increases the stats that you get with Redline. The higher the duration is, the higher the percentage buffs you will get from Redline. So you actually do want as much duration as you can possibly fit in. So while you don't need something like Prime Continuity or Max Narrow-Minded in order to make this work, it is going to objectively make it better because it increases the strength of all of those buffs that you get from Redline. So just keep that in mind. If you don't feel like leaning into shield tanking, maybe you have to go with shorter duration because you don't have all of the duration mods that you need to max it out, then it might be worth just leaning more into the 100% damage reduction of kinetic plating. Otherwise, having the higher duration leaves you vulnerable for more time, which is why I like to use Adaptation and Arcane Aegis to stay alive longer. So it's pretty flexible, pretty easy to do. If you can get your hands on the new Galvanized mod for a slam build, it makes any heavy slam melee weapon just so much more ridiculous because it adds to your combo counter. Anything that's going to add to your combo is going to just make it so much stronger for a heavy build. Any heavy build, really. But especially for these slam builds when they do so much damage. So, there you go. Definitely give this a try if you're really yearning for another heavy slam build, because we can't use Wukong anymore the same way we used to. I have a feeling it'll scratch the itch for you pretty good.